Are we doing? Yeah. It's about how I am as well. We are almost at the end of con. Sadly, I do not like this 2-day format. London was 3 days, and don't get me wrong, most of Sunday I was exhausted, but today I'm like, you know what, I can do another day. I would not be able to do another day. Now, rather appropriately for our last panel of the weekend on this, our humble little stage, you can see we've been invaded by some rather, I'm told, friendly and very considerate guests. They are our panelists today are called Project Dalek, and they do something. They build Daleks. And they're here to talk to us about their organisation, what they do, how you can become a member, and what goes into actually building your very own Dalek if you want to have a go. Okay, so do please put your hands together, give a big warm welcome for Project Dalek. So, first of all, what we're going to do is I'm just going to run through some questions that will hopefully cover most of the basics for what goes into Project Dalek and the building of one. And then afterwards we will open it up to some Q&As if you have any questions for the creators or any for the Daleks themselves. For those of you who were here for casual cosplay, I did see a fourth Doctor. I'm hoping he comes back soon, otherwise I don't fancy my chances of coming out of here alive. So, first of all, gentlemen, welcome. Glad to have you here. So, first of all, the question, I suppose, is Project Dalek. What is it? Why would I join?
Okay, well, Project Dalek is a resource website, so it's got all the information that you could want about Daleks. It's not just about building a Dalek. If you like Daleks, you can join the website, so you don't have to actually build one to become a member of Project Dalek. Believe it or not, we've got over 22,000 members on the website, and that's worldwide. That's not just in the UK. We've got members in America, Australia, even as far as Tasmania, Canada, all over the world really. So it's quite a big movement. It's very popular with families and kids as well as adults as well. There's quite a lot of geeky adults that like to build Daleks. On the website there's information about each style of Dalek.
This isn't a toy, mate. It's not a toy.
You can find out how they're built, how they're put together, what the materials we use to put them together, the sort of costs involved we'll talk about a little bit later on. But it's basically, for anybody that likes Daleks, the information is on there. We've got detailed plans, we've got a builder's guide, and there's sections on there about motorisation, electronics, painting, working with GRP, glass reinforced plastics and fiberglasses and things like that. So if you fancy building a Dalek, it's probably the best place to go, because the plans that are on there have been put together over years and years of research, and some of the guys on there are proper geeky, nerdy into their measurements. For example, Mork on the end there, he's a Mark I Dalek from the original 1963 series, and that is pretty much accurate to within a millimetre of the original Daleks as you would have seen them in 1963, including all the colours and everything else. Colours are a bit of a debate on Project Dalek because in 1963 we didn't have colour televisions, so black and white was about, and nobody's actually got the paint codes or anything like that for the original Daleks. So that's what Project Dalek's about.
I noticed that there's one section of Project Dalek is the autopsy section. That sounds kind of grim, but if you could explain that to us.
Yeah, well, each Dalek's got specific parts that are all got different names, and when you're building you need to know what each part is called. For example, at the top you've got the dome, which is the head. You've got the eye stalk and the eye. Then below that you've got the neck bin, and then below that you've got the shoulder section, which has the gun and usually a plunger, sometimes a claw or something else. Then you've got the skirt section with all the hemis on it, and then below that you've got the fender. These do vary from Dalek to Dalek and from design to design.
Okay, so we know where to go now. We know what the autopsy section is. Let's say that I decide, you know what, there aren't enough genocidal Daleks in the world. We
Very
need
true.
more. We need more of them. It's not true. I was being sarcastic.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm really not coming off this stage alive. Okay, so
True.
let's say I have decided to have a go at building one of my own of these. Where do I start?
Go to Project Dalek and do your research on there. If you're building a Dalek, you can guarantee whatever you want to build, almost, someone else has already built one. Their build diary is on there, and if you have any problems, you can guarantee that at least half a dozen people have solved that problem in a different way. So everything's there on the build diaries, work from that. Somebody's already done it, and there's always advice on there as well. There's the Project Dalek forum, where you can post messages and ask questions, and people will almost certainly refer you to a particular build diary where your question will be answered.
Now, Daleks themselves, as you can probably see, are quite large individuals. What sort of space, special tools, things like that are required when deciding to build one of these genocidal maniacs?
Well, space is not really an issue because you'll probably see later on that most of these Daleks are built in sections. So normally the neck and the head come off in one section, the shoulders will come off in a section, and then the skirt and the base or fender will come off in one section. So they can actually be stored in sections, and a lot of our builders would build them in a garden shed, and they would store them in a garden shed. Mine's in the dining room, which is obviously not the best place to keep a Dalek, but it's keeping an eye on things.
I guess it depends on the kind of dinner party you're having.
That's right, yeah, it does create a talking point. But yeah, you can store them as a complete Dalek, or they do come apart into sections. And people are really ingenious in the way they do this. Some of the Daleks will tilt forwards, some will tilt backwards. Some of them, the skirts actually come apart into 3 sections or 2 sections. So it doesn't really matter how much space you've got, you probably can fit one in. When it comes to any specialist tools, I would say if you've got a good set of woodworking tools, that's pretty much all you need. You don't need anything specialised. Some of the parts you can make yourself. Sorry, you can make all of it yourself, or some of the parts now, we've even got 3D print files and stuff like that. So for an NSD or new series Dalek, some of the parts look like are more scary and a lot more difficult to build. But you can buy some of those parts ready-made, so if you don't fancy doing the difficult bits. For example, again on my Dalek, the dome, I cheated, I bought that off of eBay. I wish I didn't, because it was absolutely horrendous and I spent a lot of hours trying to get it to look right. So, but again, we've got mould plans on the Project Dalek website, so you can print that off and then it tells you how to make the dome if you fancy doing that as well. So there's always help on the website if you need it, if you fancy building one.
So building on that quite literally, when it comes to doing these things, I must admit my Doctor Who knowledge is a little bit sketchy. Can anyone tell me what the in the show what the Daleks are made of? What metal? What material? Oh, we have one here. Dalekanium. Dalekanium. So of course we can't get Dalekanium on Amazon or eBay or any other things. So what material? If I want to build one of these things, what materials am I stocking up on?
MDF and fiberglass and wood.
Davros would be so proud.
Sorry?
Davros would be so proud.
This one, the Silver NSD, the base is made of MDF. The skirt is also MDF. The shoulder section is fiberglass. And then the very heavy neck bin is also MDF. And then the dome on top is fiberglass. So some Daleks, I've even seen Daleks made of cardboard as well as hardboard, and I know of one Dalek that some parts of it are made of EVA foam. That's mine, but I'm keeping quiet about that one.
Okay.
I was going to say there's various other items on here, household items, certainly on the older Daleks. So there's obviously the sink plunger and the whisk.
That's the whisk, right?
That's the whisk.
That's the
Yes, yeah. And around the hemis on the NSD, these are actually oil seals. And there is a company that sells them. They sell them as Dalek oil seals, complete set.
Is that what it says on the website? Dalek oil seals.
I don't know if you'll find that on there, but if you Google Dalek oil seals, you will find the company. Barnwell, I think they're called. Oh, sorry, shouldn't advertise.
That's fine. It's by this point we've been advertising everything else. Now, like many cosplays I've seen this weekend, my initial impression is looking at these is like, that looks like an incredibly difficult thing to build. You touched on earlier and said that there are many different styles, many different variations. Of course, with each new Doctor, I think we get a slightly different looking Dalek. Are some Daleks more difficult to build than others?
Yeah, that's a definite yes for that question. I would say the later in the series you get, the more difficult they get. For example, if we look at Dalek Novus, the black Dalek here in front, he's based on the original series Dalek. Well, actually, all three of these Daleks on the front are all what's called the original series Daleks. As you can see, they're actually a lot smaller than the other NSD Daleks. Parts-wise, I would say the dome is probably the most complicated part to build. It's not difficult, it just is time-consuming. That's probably the biggest thing. But again, what you can do, if you're worried about your skill set, what you can do is choose a Dalek model that is simpler to build. So I would say one of the original series Daleks, again, harping back to Morg, he's a Mark 1, I would say that is probably one of the simplest ones you could build. If you're feeling really confident, then obviously you can have a go at building an NSD Dalek. But bear in mind that the NSD, a lot of the parts are available for that, you can buy them, whereas the Mark 1 Dalek, you can't. The only thing I was able to buy from Morg was the dome itself. Everything else on that was made. So, yeah, I would say, yeah, ping pong balls on the dome, that was the original 60s look. They were very ingenious back then because they only actually made 4 Daleks. For the original very first episode of the Daleks in 1963, the BBC didn't actually make the Daleks. They got a company in London called Shawcraft Models to make them because they were on a budget. So they only made 4 for the original programme. And then over the years, through the 60s and 70s, all the Daleks you see are morphations, if that's a word, of the original Daleks. They would just paint them in different colours and things like that. And for the movies, they used the original Daleks and just plonked them on a slightly taller fender. So they were very ingenious in the way they kept recycling the Daleks. That's why, if you look at a Doctor Who episode from the 70s, the Daleks look really beat up and scratched, and there's missing parts, and some of them have got screws poking out the side. It's because basically they just make, did and mend and just repaired the Daleks as they went along, really. But again, this is where the forum of Project Dalek comes in. If you get stuck or you want some advice, best thing to do is go on the forum, and I can guarantee you there's somebody on there that will be able to help you. My eyeball on my Dalek, I didn't make it. Somebody on the forum made it for me. So again, you know, there's always somebody on the site that can help you out if you need it.
Okay, so let's say I've got my materials, I've got my build space ready. On average, I've decided which one I want to go for. Let's say an original series. How much time am I looking at sinking into this?
That's a very good question. I bought my first Dalek. I bought as a pile of bits, and it was a very sorry state. And I had to rebuild some of it, but I rebuilt it in 4 weeks. And I was on a deadline. It was for my daughter's wedding. Back up a sec. It was for your daughter's wedding?
My daughter's wedding,
yes.
You brought a Dalek?
Yes. Well, why not? Every home should have one.
I can't be the only one that finds that strange. Hands up, Dalek at a wedding strange? Thank you.
You will all be exterminated.
Thank you. Doctor Who's here, fantastic, I'm safe. Sorry, go on. You built it for your daughter's wedding?
Yeah, son-in-law was a big fan, so he said, I expect to see a full-size Dalek at the wedding, so you've got to do it. The wife didn't agree, but anyway, it's too late.
Tell me you escorted your daughter down the aisle as the Dalek.
No, I was dressed as the 8th Doctor, actually.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. She had a fantasy wedding.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I would hope so.
Going back to how long it takes, some Daleks you can build in 3 or 4 months, Some people take longer. It depends how much time they've got and how many people are involved. Some people involve other members of their family, might involve the wife, probably not. Probably involve the kids, brother, something like that. The other Dalek I'm working on, which is nearly finished, has taken me just over 2 years. So, and some people, I think there was one here yesterday that took 4 years to build. So it depends how much time you've got.
Like a lot of other cosplays, then it takes pretty much as much time as you're going to put into it.
It's an ongoing process, really. You can spend as much time as you want.
Okay. So, big question: money. Like all cosplays, it's going to require a bit of investment. Is there an average cost of how much it takes to build one of these?
It's difficult to say because it depends where you get your materials from. But some builders have made them for as little as 200 quid. Mork, I think, cost me probably about £900 all in. There's one big factor that will influence the cost of the Dalek. Jerick here is foot powered, so if you fancy getting some massive thigh muscles and pushing it around with your legs, then you're going to save yourself a lot of money because you don't have to motorise it. The 3 Daleks you've got in front of you here, they're all motorised with, we just use generally old wheelchairs, motorised wheelchairs and things like that. So you've got to factor in the cost of a wheelchair. You can normally pick one of those up for, what, 200 quid maybe? 100, 200 pounds, something like that. So it depends how ingenious you are. I mean, we've already said that a lot of the parts on the Dalek are sort of things that you find around the house, really. Wood has got expensive at the moment, but yeah, you could build one for about 200 quid probably. If you wanted to motorise it, you probably need to budget somewhere in around 400, 500 pounds maybe, and that'll get you a pretty cool looking Dalek.
Interesting. Range, again, like time, I guess, it will cost as much as you want to sink into it. So, let's say I'm building one of these things. Let's say I'm going for this one over here on the right. I get to a certain point and my local table tennis shop has run out of ping pong balls. I'm stuck. What do I do?
Project Dalek Forum. Ask on there, someone will be able to point you in the right direction, where to get them, and even probably tell you exactly the right ones to get. As I said before, you know, everyone's answered your question already on Project Dalek Forum. There's a lot on there, so it's a lot to wade through, but if you do ask, someone, probably one of the admins, will point you in the right direction because they know where everything is.
All the information you need is there then. So, I think one of the really iconic things about the Daleks though is the voice. That really robotic, I'm going to destroy you because I want to voice. Where does that come in? Where are we talking voice modulators?
That's it, voice modulator. There's several different ones around. Ones you can buy pre-made. There's the various, there's 2, well there's only one now, the Mark Mod Mark 5. He did make other ones, Mark Mod Mark 3. Before that, that's Vince Martin. I've got, in this one, I've got one called a Dartek, made by Justin Cridland. I'm not sure if he's making them anymore. There's 2 or 3 other places you can get them from. You can get them, there are plans for them on Project Dalek Forum, so you could, it tells you what parts you need and the plans there, so you can get one and make them yourself. Or there are people on there who will make the Project Dalek one for you. They're anything between sort of 100, 200 pounds for a voice modulator.
Do you voice modulate? I don't know much about them. Do you have to get one that is specifically programmed to sound like a Dalek?
You can adjust what the sound comes out like, because Daleks often will have different voices, so you can adjust what the sound comes out like. But the voice modulator is only part of it. You've got to talk like a Dalek. So if I'm talking like I am now through the voice modulator, you're not going to sound like a Dalek very much. But if you start talking like a Dalek.
So
then it's a bit different.
So you've got the voice modulator is half. You've got to put a bit of performance.
You've got to
into it
put
as well.
performance into it as well.
Okay.
Yes.
And the voice modulator would allow you to adjust sort of the pitch and things.
Yeah, you can adjust the pitch. You can adjust what it sounds like. I mean, some people spend ages trying to get it just right. But once you get it just right, you mark your machine where it is just right.
Okay. So if you wanted, just out of curiosity, you could have one that sounded like it was on helium.
Yes.
I want that, Dalek.
Yes, you could.
I could get on with that, Dalek. Okay, so let's say, I mean, I know where I live at the moment, I do not have room for a full-size Dalek. Even flat pack Daleks by IKEA. Watch for them soon in the next spring collection. Let's say I don't have room for one. I mean, can I join Project Dalek without building one?
Yeah, again, that's absolutely. We've got about 22,000 members, but not all of those have actually got Daleks. So,
Oh, thank God.
Yes. I think currently we've got about 300 members on our members map. So that's where somebody has a Dalek and they put a pin on a map and say, I've got a Dalek and I live here. There's about 300 in overall on our club, but we probably think that number's quite a bit higher. Yeah. But no, if you haven't got room for one and you like Daleks, you can still join the website, because it's not just about building the Daleks on there, it's a resource really. So it's everything you want to know about Daleks. There's photographs on there, there's footage, there's all sorts of things that you can look at. But you can also build a scale model, so a lot of our builders haven't got room, they'll build a smaller one. You can build a 3D version or a render or a CGI version on a PC. There's actual forum links for all of those types of things. So if you don't want to build a real one, we haven't got the money or the time at this particular moment in time, then we can still do something Dalek related. We don't, on the site, we're not one of those clicky websites that you have to have a Dalek, otherwise we're not interested. We're not really about that. It's just, if you like Daleks, we like Daleks, come and have a chat with us and we'll help you out or point you in the right direction really.
And when you say if you just want to do something Dalek related, that's mean purely construction, not genocide, right?
Yeah, that, or, I mean, for example, today...
You're shrugging your shoulders, that worries me.
He doesn't agree, does he? No, I mean, we have members that come along. I mean, here today, we've got to thank our spotters, because you'll probably notice when we're out and about trundling in the Dalek, we all have a couple of people sort of hovering about the Dalek. They're not Dalek spotters, they are helpers for us, because inside the Dalek it's really difficult to see, especially young children. They like to try and sit in front of you, and you really can't see them. So the spotters who come and help us at these events are absolutely essential, and they play a massive part. So again, if you can't build a Dalek, you can still get involved in being an operator's helper, or even have a go in a Dalek if you come along and help out. So it's always something you can get involved in if you really want to.
Well, speaking of getting inside a Dalek and being inside a Dalek, shall we see how they actually do get inside one of these monstrosities?